You know, I actually have the suspicion that despite the fact that we can't hear audio for that video, that might actually just make it funnier for us, just watching Bloodyface and TJ flicking their hair with absolutely no context whatsoever.
It's true, it really makes me wish that I didn't tie my hair for this broadcast so I could try and join them. But we do have to get into some actual Hearthstone now, as entertaining as that was. I can't wait to see some Cardsling in action, because you mentioned Ryvius is not only playing the OTK Demon Hunter, but also a very interesting warrior list. And we have a lot to talk about as the regional opinions go on how to build warrior exactly.
It's very much an evolving art, and I'm excited to see what Ryvius has in his warrior list. So let's take a look at his overall deck archetypes that he will be bringing to today's match. Like you said, that OTK combo Demon Hunter is one that I am very much a fan of, and it has been left up with only his Druid being banned in this match. All three of his decks, I would say, are pretty interesting compared to the rest of the field. The OTK Demon Hunter, we know it very well. The majority of the time, you're trying to draw through your deck, survive, and then go with a big Kael'thas Twin Slice in a Demon combo for up to, you know, maybe even close to 30 damage if you're lucky, along with all the other chip along the way. His Priest as well. This is not the kind of Priest we saw from Kin yesterday, which ran Galakron but no Invoke cards. This is a full-on Galakron Priest.
Yeah, we were also seeing Priest from Shansu that was running the Res package, and we would call those Res Priests with just Galakron in the deck to act as both removal and a value engine. But now, you're right, this is full-on Galakron Priest coming with actual Invoke cards alongside it. And I wonder how this would match up against that particular Res Priest, but it's not in Glory's set of decks.
That's right. It's a bit of a different lineup. Obviously, there's Warrior in Ryvius' deck, but the Warrior in Glory's lineup has been banned away. Another interesting ban. Both Demon Hunters left up here. I think this is very much part of Ryvius' plan, is to, you know, if not prey on the aggro Demon Hunter, at least have a decent matchup against it overall with his own combo Demon Hunter, which is a very good matchup in my opinion, and then the Galakron Warlock and the standard Druid as well. This is a much more standard lineup, I would say, from Glory overall, which is not a bad way to go whatsoever, especially in a new meta where you're not so confident as to what the overall best lineup you could possibly go for is. Just play the standard good decks at the moment, whereas Ryvius with something a little bit spicier that I'm excited to see.
Yeah, for sure. It is, Ryvius is somebody that we kind of tout as a deck builder, though he himself refers to himself more of as a deck refiner. Even in the HCT days when he was one of the pioneers of Togwaggle and Druid and so on. So here we go. It is game one, and we are immediately going to see Galakron Priest, full-fledged Galakron Priest, not just Res with Galakron, on stream here on GM.
That's right. We'll have to see how it works up against the Galakron Warlock. It's kind of an interesting dynamic, though, isn't it? That just inherently comes into play with the battle cry effect of the Galakrons, because the Warlock's Galakron is inherently aggressive. You're summoning demons, you're trying to dominate the board and attack your opponent. Whereas on the other side, the Galakron Priest is inherently reactive. Do you think that's how the matchup is going to go overall, with the Warlock on the aggressive, Priest on the defensive? Or is it a bit more dynamic than that?
I would actually say it's probably a bit more dynamic, especially comparing Galakron Priest to Res Priest, because Res Priest has a way more removal set into the package. If we look at Ryvius' list, there's actually a ton of minions in the early game. He is still running some of the wide removal, Breath of the Infinite, Holy Nova, but maybe less of things like Penance, Forbidden Words, Shadow Word Pain, which you might see sprinkled around these Resurrect lists.
Good news for Ryvius that he didn't get any demon cards there off of the Thought Steal that could be killed by the Sacrificial Pact, while it can still target enemy demons. Obviously, Sacrificial Pact was announced recently as one of the cards that is going to see a nerf. It will soon only be able to target friendly demons instead of enemy demons as well, which personally I'm a big fan of. I think it's a little bit too dominant in the current metagame, a bit too swingy.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. We'll talk about other nerfs later, but Glory already putting down the Morgue Artificer and using it with Mortal Coil. In other matchups, you would probably hold on to deal AoE damage instead, but I can definitely get behind just using it for an efficient removal in this spot.
But right now for Ryvius, I'd say, honestly, things are just looking pretty good. He's curving out with his Invoke minions, a little bit too full in terms of his hand size at the moment, and he really wouldn't like to coin out this... Calling out the Goblin Lackey doesn't feel amazing because it means he's a turn away from playing Galakron quicker. So in the end, he just plays the coin full stop, doesn't even want to get down the Goblin Lackey.
Yeah, probably hoping to save it for something more high impact because, as we said, the Galakron is cutting a lot of the single target removal that Red Priest might run, and so having the Rush Lackey probably is an important answer for when Glory plays, let's say, just one tall minion.
Yeah, I actually quite like holding on to it because it's not only the actual battle cry effect that Goblin Lackey can afford you, it's also the Plague of Flames that's in hand. If he can go for Lightwell, Goblin Lackey, Plague of Flames, that's 4 mana, 2 minions dead on his opponent's side of the board, which is pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, it gives Warlock a taste of their own medicine. Maybe not quite so effective against the types of board that Galakron Warlock likes to build with these small demons getting in the way. But say for the Galakron turn itself, when it builds a few more larger demons, that could be something very important. You see now, Fate Weaver, already active, discounting a heck of a lot of mana. The Plague of Flames you mentioned could be getting way more minions into the pool.
Yeah, this is getting pretty disgusting, to be honest. The Natalie Celine that could come down next turn if a single big minion is played for Glory. Like you said, in this Galakron Warlock, there's not many single big minions that are played, so that might be held back for a bit. But just the overall mana reduction on a 9-card hand is ridiculously powerful.
It is. So Glory now has the option to trade and play a Crazed Netherwing. Of course, it still leaves up the Fate Weaver, but other options, he could perhaps take a double trade and use Dark Skies. Or just double trade and redevelop on his own, since he's probably not killing the Fate Weaver anyway with the Crazed Netherwing. He's going to go ahead and cash in 1 sacrificial pack. Good to note that even if this were nerfed, it would still work this way.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually wondering if you would still just run it in Warlock, because cheap cards are inherently pretty good in Warlock when you can life tap and you have the Veiled Worshipper as well. And 0 mana heal 5 is a pretty good card, only destroying a 1/1 imp most of the time.
Yeah, perhaps exclusively in this archetype of Warlock, although it does lose a lot of its utility, and one of the big reasons that Warlock came to popularity in the first place, which is as a counter to Demon Hunter minions.
For sure. So Ryvius just taking this opportunity, obviously, to unload onto the board as much as possible, maybe hoping to bait out some kind of removal. It's kind of a win-win. If this board does stick, then obviously he has a board. He can push face and start going for some damage. And if it doesn't stick, then he can just unload yet again with the minions he has in hand and get that Galakron down to swing things back.
Right, so Glory going to go for using 1 Dark Skies and Crazed Netherwing. You could note that he actually had the option to use Nether Breath instead of Dark Skies, but I wonder if it's more important to hold these for perhaps burst damage towards the end of the game. Because Priest, the way it's looking, is going to be generating way more value than the Warlock. So maybe Glory is already looking for a plan B here, which is try to maneuver his way into an Alexstrasza into burst lethal.
So this turn now for Glory, obviously Galakron is tempting. Sorry, being on 7 mana, but Natalie Celine being in play, I guess that's maybe just a little bit too much damage to be stomaching.
It is a lot of damage, and so he will cash in that Plague of Flames. And I think, yeah, he could hold back more on the Galakron, especially since we mentioned the Priest has tons of value. Probably wants to get like the max amount of demons available.
Yeah. So now this opens up an interesting situation where Ryvius could start going off with, what is that, the Sethek Worshipper, I think that card's called.
Yeah, very strong card.
Yes, and start like generating a whole bunch of spells with
Renew, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly, and hope that they keep churning into more spells that he can target on his minions. But if the chain does break, then it's not that powerful, and he's just left with a 2-3 on board. And also, the other thing is that he doesn't really need spells at this point. He needs minions. He needs cards that he can throw onto the board to start pulling things back into his favor. And so because of that, he's saying, I think here, right, my board is not going to be that powerful anyway. I don't want to go off quite yet. I want to use this Sethek when I can target my opponents. Also, I want to respond with a good Galakron of my own.
Right. I mean, you could make the argument that the Galakron starts generating him minions with the hero power, but it is way too much of a waste, I think, to use that battle cry on an empty board. And now he can get it to destroy at least a couple of these demons. At 12-12, of course, cannot go face. It is always a bit funny to look at.
With these Fate Weavers, I'm kind of starting to think, is there any kind of like big combo he's actually working towards, more so than just value? But if there is, I'm not seeing it. Like
I'm not seeing it with Mind Blast, Holy Fire, and everything rotated away. Probably just there because hand reduction sheet is just a good thing to do in Hearthstone.
I'll agree with that.
Very powerful turn. Yeah, due to the Fate Weaver, the first one, he's able to not only clear the board, develop his Galakron, but also remove the claw on Glory's side. That is a swing if I've ever seen one.
And the little dormant demon working perfectly for Ryvius there, just unable to be targeted by Galakron, but Ryvius says, who even cares? A 2-5 taunt, have it, be my guest.
Right. And now Glory trying to scramble together a little bit more pressure. I was actually looking at going for the other 5-5 as well, Shield of Galakron, but I think Glory is right to recognize that he should be pressing his hero power as much as possible. I mean, it's probably not going to add up to the same value that Ryvius' hero power does, but any type of free pressure he can generate is at the moment.
Yeah, taking a look at his list, it's not an especially threat-light version. It's still got Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. It's got the Zephrys, which some people aren't running as well. So he doesn't need to be especially conservative with his resources. But I think he can quite quickly see that if he doesn't get the value out of his hero power, he won't be able to keep up.
Can we talk about how nutty that Thought Steal was? He gets a Veiled Worshipper of his own, and because he's a Galakron deck, he can activate it and draw 3.
Illegal.
Oh my goodness. But Ryvius is going to take it slow, start pressing his hero power for himself. Katrina, not a bad one to get at all, but I do think he's had at least a couple like not high value minions in the res pool, but at the very least it's a decent sized 8-drop, summon something else, and he can still play his hero power alongside it. Okay, so for Glory, you would really wish to have something like Rain of Fire in hand right now, but not available. Maybe you can start digging for it with the Veiled Worshipper.
Maybe.
I just realized it's not in the list.
What's not in the list, sorry?
Rain of Fire for Glory.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
I guess that's what he's cut to make room for the, the Zephrys, the Ooze.
I do think he's got at least one coil left, though. That's a bit worth digging for with the... Zephrys could give a nice clear here, but I don't know if that's exactly how he wants to be using Zephrys. I feel like it's got to get more value than just clearing a couple 1-health minions.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd be pretty surprised if he goes for Zephrys for anything other than, like... I mean, obviously Bloodlust if it's lethal, but more likely Tyrion or Edwin, something like that.
So I'm already looking for ways that Ryvius can push for a 2-turn lethal. He's got a Mass Dispel to get through these taunts, but not lethal damage even with the Kronks.
Yeah.
So he's going to start with the draw, and Glory's expression at his own stolen Veiled Worshipper I think is pretty warranted.
So what Priest does now, man, 2-mana Thought Steal, it's just a pretty good card, honestly.
For sure, I mean, it's cheaper than Arcane Intellect. Gets you the same amount of cards. And yes, they're random and not things you actually include, but generally your opponent is including good cards in their deck. So
but this is the real power of Thought Steal, is you get cards that aren't Priest cards.
Hey, come on. Priest got a huge buff.
Yeah, it's true.
Set.
I'm being mean. That's pretty disgusting, though. Yeah,
yes.
You can just get rid of the 2-5.
And if he wanted to, he could just then Plague of Flames the rest away. Or
I think
he
I like
can do it this
holding
way.
on to
Yeah. Doing it this way is very clean because then he ends up with the Shield of Galakron on his side of the board.
Is that really worth a play?
He's got another one, which didn't even start in his deck to begin with.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not so much that he'll run out of removal necessarily, although that is, I suppose, a factor. I don't know, it's more just that it felt like he wasn't really behind on board. He would have to have chunked, like, I don't know, 8, 10 damage maybe, which is, you know, obviously not insignificant, but I don't know, with a Renew in hand.
It is not insignificant. I mean, it's not that scary if you look at it as just 10 damage, but seeing this Alexstrasza in hand from Glory.
That's true, yeah.
Really scary concept. More probably just to get it out of hand here. Or is he going to start chucking away another breath? Not that it doubles damage dealt to face, just to minions. So it looks like he's just starting to dump a little bit. Maybe hold back on the Dragon Queen for now. Although I was looking at just Dragon Queen for this turn.
So this could definitely be a turn.
Is it active already?
Sethic
My bad.
Veil. Oh, yes, sorry, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, this could be a turn for the Sethic Veil Weaver. He could go for
At least
sack,
3
sack
targeting
pact.
spells.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sack Pact is pretty powerful to start off. Renew doesn't do anything yet, but it discovers a spell and cycles you through. It's not
With
bad.
the Osis also off the
better.
top, it's quite good, I would say.
Yeah.
But even
or
if he
just
starts...
Katrina. Yeah.
So that's an ooze. I cannot tell you if that's a or below average outcome, but with the amount of small minions that are dead, I don't think Ryvius could be too upset about that. So,
So for Glory,
Glory,
obviously... Sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking that his first priority would be trying to remove the Katrina, but he's reaching for the Dragon Queen. Perhaps thinking that the Katrina itself is not too much of a threat in a non-res priest type deck.
It's kind of tough, isn't it? Because he doesn't want to do a chunk of damage before he plays Alexstrasza to put Ryvius to 15. But at the same time, something like Kronks into Nether Breath there was looking pretty strong. It is an 8 damage Nether Breath to take out the Katrina.
Yeah. It seemed like a pretty strong option. And now I'm taking a look at Ryvius's list, and he is running double Plague of Death though, so that's the removal package. He's got all of the AoE still, the Breath of the Infinite, Holy Nova, Plague of Death, and Soul Mirror. So that could be something playing into Glory's mindset as well.
That's fair. Glory just trying to put down just enough to tickle Ryvius each turn. But to be honest, I think this was arguably a little bit of an under-commitment onto the board. Like, the 8/8 isn't that difficult to deal with. Okay. And from there, Ryvius can just continue to develop on his own.
Why does the Priest have more Plagues of Death than the Warlock?
I don't know what's going on anymore.
Right.
So, we could see Apotheosis to buff Katrina and then double heal it with Renews. It could then take out the Alexstrasza, the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, quite nicely.
You can even fit the Sethic into this turn, right? But I think he would fill his hand overflowing, given that the Renews also discover something. Instead, he is going to go for Waste Warden and trade. That feels quite ugly. I didn't realize that the Warlock was about to fatigue, though.
Like, I get that Apotheosis can be... It has a very high ceiling in terms of how powerful it can be. Like, if you stick Kronks or the 8/8 Dragon from Kronks or whatever, and stick Apotheosis on that, you basically heal to full, no questions asked. But, I don't know, that was just pretty good. He could have got a nice stronghold onto the board there.
Maybe it's, again, another thing of respecting Alexstrasza saving the Renew for face heal. Although, when you think about the reach of Burst from Glory, the 2 Nether Breaths are pretty much it, and I guess Zephyrus. Zephyrus kind of being the X factor here because he's not running the additional Soulfires that you might see in other Warlock lists.
So on this turn, we could be looking at Alexstrasza face, and then just attack for the 2. Obviously, Glory knows that there is some amount of healing in the deck, given that Apotheosis is hard run, as are double Renew. So he has to be pretty hesitant to go for that. He needs to make sure that when he does go for that one ace up his sleeve with Alexstrasza, that it absolutely works.
Right. And that, I think, has been Glory's whole game plan of the what looks to us like under commitment and still being patient with the Alexstrasza. He's also making sure that when he plays the Alexstrasza, Ryvius ideally has nothing on board so that he can't immediately heal with Apotheosis. But now the Kronks for 4 mana, due to the double Fate Weavers, gonna make quick work of Glory's board. Glory now onto his last card draw. And Ryvius, you know, Glory's far deeper into fatigue, so he's got to get something going. And is the turn. It feels bad to expend a 5/4 for Plague of Flames, but this is the final push.
Does. So for Ryvius, we could just be looking at Sethic Veil Weaver, do a bunch of stuff, and then Plague of Flames at the end. But I guess that would fill his hand up with too much stuff, is the worry there.
I like stuff, especially since all of his stuff is cheap. It's funny how his Thought Seal does nothing. Yeah, at the very least, he can combo off Silence and Sethic. Looks like he's just going to use a Plague of Death. I don't hate it, especially knowing that, you know, Glory's hand is, that's it. And I guess the hero power and the Veiled Worshipper is pretty much unplayable as well. 4 mana deals 6 years. No, it'll be higher than that because he's already drawing fatigue.
I mean, we can argue about small things, but I think, to be honest, they are both winning plays. As he has another Plague of Death, 2 more Plague of Deaths. It's just plague-ridden right now, Ryvius' hand.
Death, 3 Plagues of Flame in total that he's had this game. So for Glory, is there anything Zephyrus can do situation? I mean, he set up a board that looks like it's lethal, and he's just hoping that the other Plague of Deaths in the bottom 4. It's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, this was the other downside of Glory's play, right, was that he uses up all his dragons before he even played his Nether Breaths, which was difficult, because if he hadn't gone for the, you know, the 5/4 plus Plague of Death, then he wouldn't have been able to play the Alexstrasza and have it survive, necessarily. But, I don't know, I feel like Ryvius just had everything he needed.
This looks a bit cheat. The Psyche split. I mean, Sethic over here is like giving Lyra the Sunshard a run for her money.
Very true. I mean, honestly, I think that might be a better card overall, and it's not even a legendary that we're working with now. Priest has got some very, very tasty tools, and I don't even think Ryvius is running it in his deck straight up. He must have discovered that somehow of one of his Priest minions that was given to him.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly, the Invokes. But either way, it was a pretty exciting game 1, and I don't know how the Invoke Galakron Priest would stack up against some of the other more aggressive decks that Hearthstone has to offer at the moment, but it was looking very, very powerful in that matchup.
For sure. I mean, I obviously have not had enough of a sample size to say, but it seemed like there was no point in that game where Ryvius was feeling particularly uncomfortable or like in a bad spot given what Glory had to build onto the board.
Yeah, I think it really speaks well to the recent changes to the classic basic set of Priest, where it felt like it was just playing strong cards. It's just, as a base class now, it feels good enough to just play out your powerful cards and be able to take the game. So it's a nice new direction that we're seeing Priest go in there. Maybe I'll be a little bit more of a fan going into the future. But with that out of the way now for Ryvius, he is 1-0 up in this series. And for the rest of it, we're going to have to go to a quick break before we come back with the resolution of Ryvius versus Glory. Welcome back, everybody, to Hearthstone Grandmasters. We are just jumping into our first series of the day with Ryvius versus Glory. This is the second half of the top 8. We had our first half yesterday when Chonsu and Surrender both got through to the top 4 on Sunday. And today we're going to be finding out who will be joining them. First match, Ryvius got a 1-0 lead with his Galakron Priest, the only one we've seen so far. The only one, I believe, in all of Grandmasters, actually, that he is bringing here. And he's clearly got something right with it. But now the onus is on Glory to turn things around with the rest of his decks.
It's true. And the very interesting thing to note in that series is that both Demon Hunters were left up. And so one of those we're going to be getting to see right coming up next. So Glory trying again with the Galakron Warlock. And I think this will be into a better matchup for him. In theory, if it were a tempo Demon Hunter, but Ryvius himself is running a combo Demon Hunter.
Yeah, that's right. Personally, I find, having played a bit of Galakron Warlock the last couple days in the most recent meta, that whenever my opponent plays something like Umberwing or anything that's exclusive to the aggro version, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I'm now playing the good matchup and not having to play combo Demon Hunter, because I feel like the matchup changes drastically when this enters the arena instead. One of the main reasons being that Sacrificial Pact all of a sudden goes from having loads of really good targets, like the the Fellwing, the Battle Fiend, a whole bunch of good demons early on, to having very, very few good targets. It's really, I suppose, the Sightless Watcher that's the best you're looking at if you want to be taking out a demon in this list. And really, they don't really present much of a threat anyway onto the board. They just draw their whole deck, and then it's honestly quite difficult as the Warlock to withstand that amount of damage that they can unload in one turn.
Right. And if anybody has been living under a rock, the whole OTK centers around these 3 key cards featured. Kael'thas, every third spell, ideally Inner Demon, costs 0. And then Twin Slice being those first and second spells, which also cost 0. So you essentially just have to play Kael'thas, spend the 6 mana, and then you can, spend another 20 mana in your turn, and it's very, very powerful how much attack can get onto Illidan himself. I do want to note, though, that one of the cards that I've seen in many of the OTK lists not available in that list was Kayn Sunfear. So it seems like Ryvius is going for just the old-fashioned way of getting through taunts with, altruist shenanigans, etc.
Yeah, these lists were submitted a few days ago, and the meta shifts quickly at the start of any new expansion. But a list that doesn't shift all too much is the Galakron Warlock that we see here from Glory. Got to see it last game, and we're going to get to see it again now. Obviously, Galakron, as you can see there, is in a way the centerpiece, especially in Glory's list, which runs the full suite of Invoke minions. Most people have cut the Fiendish Rites ever since it was nerfed from 3 up to 4 mana, because it just feels like, the +1/+1 buff, the +1 attack buff usually just gives you 2/2/1s, which for 4 mana is a little bit too underwhelming in terms of fighting for tempo, because while this is to an extent a control deck with Dark Skies and the Plague of Flames, you still want to be keeping up on board as much as possible and then pushing for damage and lethal with those Nether Breaths at the end.
It's true. And the card that we mentioned not present to probably make room for those Fiendish Rites is Rain of Fire, which I would say is usually a detriment to not having Warlock if you're playing Demon Hunter. But this is the OTK version, so he's probably not too sad to have a little bit less removal. So we're getting into the game right now, and looks like Ryvius has got Skull on the left. I believe this is supposed to be mirrored, so that's good for him.
Yes, I think there might be a slight spectator issue. We'll get that sorted out as soon as possible. That is the right, I believe.
Oh, the right.
But yes, that means that Skull is on the side that he does. It's on the good side, I think, there, right? Because they're drawing them from the right to left. Basically, as soon as he plays Twin Slice, come turn 6, that Skull of Gul'dan will be playable. And as you see here, a pretty standard play coming in from Ryvius of going for an unoutcasted Spectral Sight. It's one of the plays that you have to get used to fairly quickly when playing this deck, especially the combo version, is, when you have cards like Skull of Gul'dan, Kael'thas, and Inner Demon clogging up your hand, quite a lot of the time you have to play unoutcasted versions, which hurts at first, but once you get the hang of it, you quite quickly realize it's very powerful.
I mean, you can draw one right now, sure, and then you draw three, and it's basically
Exactly.
a Wondrous Wand, and you're all set. So, Glory now with a removable option in Dark Skies seems like not a bad play at all, since he doesn't have to worry about those early minions that are present in Tempo Demon Hunter.
Eldrazi Warblade's coming down. Obviously was hitting the last wave of nerfs to Demon Hunter very quickly after it was released. I think it was like a day later.
Yep.
Used to have 3 durability, now has 2. And in my opinion, that single change has actually drastically raised the skill level and the difficulty of combo Demon Hunter. Because traditionally, you know, with overall 6 charges with the 2 copies you were running in your deck, you could basically just swing like a madman for the whole game and you would probably never run out of durability. But now with only 2 charges, you have to be extremely conservative with your lifesteal, especially in the more aggressive matchups, because you don't just want to be getting a little bit at a time, taking out the small minions. You want to save it up for those inner demons so that you can gain 10, 20 life in one go.
It's true, and it also makes it quite awkward that when you're at full health and you want to use the charge to remove a single minion, it doesn't always get there, because I mean, it does get there in terms of removing the minion, but you don't get the full lifesteal. But Ryvius here is prioritizing instead getting Glory within the range of the eventual OTK, which I guess makes kind of quite a bit of sense, given that Glory's starting boards haven't been very high pressure.
Yeah, I actually really like this from Ryvius. He's got his opponent to like the sweet spot now. If he can keep Gloria around 20, 22 health, I think he'll be very, very happy, because that's around the area that you're dealing with 2 inner demons and the weapon and a couple of second strikes, something like that. But it also means that if Glory heals way back up to 30 and uses all his burst heal, you can just get him down again. But if he doesn't heal at all because he's afraid of being damaged again, then you just kill him in the next few turns. So keeping him around that sweet spot of around 20 health, I think should be really his priority for the next few turns.
That's true. And Glory, of course, to advance his own game plan, has to tap every so often and draw into things that are good to do. So he has the double, which is a very good thing to keep in mind, because that is the way he's going to be kind of pushing himself out of the range of Ryvius, especially when he draws the Moarg Artificer to combo with that.
One thing for Ryvius to be a little bit afraid of at the moment is that card draw is kind of drying up here. He's got the Consume Magic on the left-hand side and potentially a second one were he to play the first half of Twin Slice as well. But, you know, you don't just want to be throwing out your Twin Slices willy-nilly. Those are extremely valuable cards for when you go for the...
It's true. Perhaps he will. I mean, he is reaching for the Altruist here, so he's starting with I-Beam instead. And then taking the draw and hoping that the one off the top will be cheap enough to use with Altruist as well. It is not, however. Kael'thas, definitely the key part of the combo, but if he wants to get extra damage off of Altruist, it's going to be at the cost of the Twin Slice. Doesn't seem worth it, so instead he's reaching for Metamorphosis, get the mana out of the way, and just start putting Glory lower and lower.
Yeah, I like this a lot from Ryvius. The second Twin Slice was kind of tempting there because it sort of opens up the Consume Magic to be outcasted on the following turn. But given there were no minions on the other side of the board to even cast the Consume Magic on right now, and the fact that he just drew Kael'thas, I think this is just a chill turn. You've done enough damage, your opponent's very scared right now, and with only 12 cards left in deck, you're bound to find something like Skull of Gul'dan, Spectral Sight, Novice Engineer, Chaos Strike, some kind of card draw in the next couple of cards.
And now for Glory, it's kind of a very scary spot where he would feel good about playing Netherwing just to thrust back the board control, but that's also lowering his own health total. It's getting to the point where Ryvius is in the lower third of his deck already.
Yeah.
And if he wants to tap alongside that, that puts Glory even lower. It's now just like kind of a game of odds, right? Like, how much do you think you're in the range already? And Glory, they're going to respect and already expend one Nether Breath without the Moarg.
Yeah, going with the one Nether Breath I think is probably right, but you bring up a great point in the Moarg. That's really what you're looking to find in this matchup. If you can go double Moarg Nether Breath or double Nether Breath with a Moarg, you heal for 16, and that can really, really swing things back in your favor later on in the game.
He is still running into removal and not further card draw he wants. He wants the other Spectral Sight, has it been played, or the other Skull. And there's a Moarg. So now this could be the window for Glory to heal back up, and Ryvius doesn't want to play Kael'thas until he has the actual combo, and aside from the card draw he's looking for, he doesn't even have either of the inner demons.
So this is a pretty specific breakpoint now where Glory knows that if Ryvius has an inner demon in hand, he can deal 17 damage, I believe, with the hero power. The 2 damage from the weapon is 7, 2 second slices is 9, and the inner demon is 17, because he knows there's 2 second halves of second slices. So he kind of has to heal, I think, because otherwise he's just conceding to inner demon as a 1 card he needs in hand. So I like this heal.
Very good. And he held that Fiendish Rites, I believe, as well, to have a cheap minion to be able to use. And you see the interaction with the Morg doubles the healing you get as well, because it's double the damage.
I hope you like my invention.
Just keeping up with the card draw.
Mana burn, not quite, although I guess it could shut off Dragon Queen Alexstrasza for the next turn.
It's pretty cute with the Moog. He look up for 6 as well.
Yeah. Although, of course, Ryvius' health total is of much less consequence than Glory's.
Yes, it's not insignificant. You know, he was at 14, he would have taken another 5 there. Like, it's getting a little bit scary for him. True. But I agree he can probably win the game beforehand.
Oh man, hulking over Fiend, and is that the Antean as well?
That definitely puts a clock on Ryvius. He needs to start ramping things up right now, and Skull of Gul'dan may be exactly what he needs to do that.
Even with the Skull, I'm getting concerned for his overall damage total with double inner demons. He's used the first halves of the Twin Slices, so does it even get there? Glory's at 28 now. Well,
he's just going for it right now.
Yeah, and I think that is the right way to go about it.
So hopefully going to get a lot of reduced spells. Blade Dance, fantastic. Spectral Sight, this is exactly what he wanted to be seeing. As long as he can find those inner demons as well, we could just be looking at game over right here.
I mean, I completely forgot that he still got the Metamorphosis charged up, so aside from his own attack, got another 5 damage available. So it's gonna have to be the other inner demon here.
Chaos Strike is another 2.
And it's the very last card, is it?
He obviously can't play it on this turn now.
Yeah. Even if he could, he would have been just short, it looks like.
So now, though, he's healed up to basically full. 14 next turn. That means that Hero Power, Inner Demon, other half of the Hero Power would be lethal.
It's true, and Glory doesn't have a way to deal with the Kael'thas and the Engineer on board unless he wants to use Kronks for AoE just to kill the Novice, but he could taunt up with an 8/8.
It's probably going to end up going for the taunt, right?
Yes, it seems much better than just healing for 5. It essentially prevents more damage. Ryvius is hella stressed.
No matter how you divide this damage, you're always overkilling by 1, right, on the 8/8. Because you can either go Hero Power, Kael'thas into the 8/8, or Inner Demon plus the 1 extra from your Hero Power into it.
I was thinking more of Chaos Nova and Kael'thas into this and hold back on the Inner Demon, but then that kills the Novice, and then you're still... Okay, well, he has... So that would deal 5 damage to face now with the Hero Power, right? And then he has Inner Demon and the regular Hero Power for the next turn, but that cannot deal with any upcoming taunt. It cannot deal with any healing on Glory's side. But he has seen both Netherbreath. He's seen the Galakron armor.
And it does make me wonder to some extent here if the mistake from Ryvius was to go for Kael'thas on the turn he did instead of just playing the Skull of Gul'dan.
Is this a mistake, though? This looks doable to me with the Chaos Nova. I mean, it's a 2-turn lethal. Oh,
we'll have to see.
Well, if he sends that to the minion, then it's not. But yes, this is the setup I was looking at. So now it's gonna have to be something like Shield of Galakron for this.
Or, of course, if Dragon Queen Alexstrasza becomes active and can deliver something.
Nosdormu is something.
Yeah.
Not Nosdormu, sorry. The other 412.
Ooh.
That's exactly it! That's the taunt! And Glory should know exactly what the last card is, and Ryvius hates to see it off the top. Oh my goodness. That is GG.
Absolutely nothing that Ryvius can do there. And in what was an incredibly close game, I was calling Glory out of the game, I was calling Ryvius out of the game, and then all of a sudden, Glory manages to turn it around with a perfect top deck there of the Shield and Galacrons. He's going to be thinking,
oh my God,
what on earth happened that game?
The stress on both sides was insane. And we saw Ryvius go for the Kael'thas rather quickly, and we did not have enough time to kind of discuss whether it had to be on that turn. But to be fair to Ryvius, time is ticking. If you're going to play Kael'thas, you've got to make the decision immediately. So he kind of, I suppose, went with an instinct play. And it remains to be seen whether or not that was his highest odds. But given the situation, had Glory drawn basically anything other than a taunt, he would have had to have relied on Alexstrasza pulling him out of that one.
Yes, and also the other thing to remember is that if the second Inner Demon hadn't been exactly the bottom card, I think Ryvius also would have just won in that instance, being able to deliver the extra damage with the hero power as well for an extra 5 damage. But very, very close game, very, very interesting. I'm sure that as with all those Demon Hunter combo games, there's always something you can do to change up. It's one of the reasons why I like the deck so much. And one of the reasons why I think it's such a difficult deck to master. I think no one's got there yet. Even the players who are grinding it day in, day out, like Orange, on stream all day. I think there's still a long way to go with that deck.
You hear that, Orange? Derek says you have a long way to go. Get good, man.
He knows it better than anyone.
Yes. In any case, we will be getting to see a little bit more of it, which is great. And still, the other Demon Hunter as well. I am just very, very shocked that we're getting to Game 3. Both Demon Hunters are still up.
Very much so. Yeah, it's going to be up against, I believe, the Druid from Glory, this time on the combo Demon Hunter. Bit of an interesting matchup. I feel like it's more about how the Druid draws than how the Demon Hunter draws, because, you know, if the Druid is finding that kind of hand with, you know, Glowfly Swarm or ramping up into a perfect Kael'thas Sunstrider, Mount Seller, blah, 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 nonsense, crazy early turn, all of a sudden I feel like the Demon Hunter doesn't really have the resources to deal with it. But having said that, there are a couple of key tech cards in the lineup for Ryvius that may be able to swing it back in his favor. I'm talking Blade Dance and I'm talking Chaos Nova, which are all but standard in a combo Demon Hunter.
Yeah, and Immolation Aura as well to deal that 2 damage AoE. Although in Glory's mind, of course, he's not going to want to be playing just the Glowflies without any buffs. He'll probably hold on to some type of like Power of the Wild or Gift of the Wild to combo. And, you know, there's a lot of Kael'thas for everyone in this type of matchup.
Not a fantastic starting hand for Ryvius, but not awful either. It's not one of those ones where you start with double Inner Demon and just kind of wish you were playing any other deck.
Whereas for Glory, there is the potential to have a very fantastic hand, depending on what the fortunes hold. Oh no! This are 2 minions off of the Fungal Fortunes. Is this real? That's his last minion in hand in the whole deck, and
it's the only
he's
minion
like
left.
Not cheating any mana off of Kael'thas anymore. That is a complete disaster, and now he's gonna have to cycle with this Wrath to just find the Glowfly Swarms, because that's the best way he's gonna have to build a board now.
All right, so Gia, obviously we both know that is a disaster. That is the last thing you could possibly want to happen with this deck. Is Glory out of the game? What should his game plan be here to have any chance?
Of course, I wouldn't count him out. He's down 1 illegal card to Ryvius still having that illegal card, Kael'thas. But he still has the chance to build up, as I said, a Glowfly Swarm board. So drawing that, buffing it with Power of the Wild, Overgrowth at any point, he's still able to cheat mana the old-fashioned way with actual ramp cards. And maybe at that point, if Ryvius hasn't drawn Immolation Auras, although we see both of them are in hand, or some type of Altruist to deal with them, then that's his last hope. But man, looking at the hands and how things have panned out so far, I would not want to be Glory right now.
I definitely would not as well. But you know, having said that, come turn 7, he's gonna have 4 0-mana spells when you count in the Bulk Beam as well to go with this exotic Mount Seller, and then he can follow up with an Overflow. So you know, maybe if he just goes Mount Seller, big board, Overflow, and then you know, Glowfly Swarm plus Soul of the Forest, there's stuff that can happen. I think Glory's in a unfavored, obviously, but still in with a decent chance here.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mount Seller is one of the problematic cards for Demon Hunter. In the OTK version and the Tempo version, they don't have that many good cards to deal with single large targets, especially if Glory can run into like an Iron Bark next turn to buff the Mount Seller. Maybe the Glowflies aren't a huge problem with this AoE type cards, like Immolation Aura, but the Mount Seller itself can be a continuous engine for value. There's, I believe, the 16 3-cost beasts in the game right now. In Standard, a bunch of them could be decent. Zixor
Absolutely.
being Premier.
Yes, yeah. A couple of really good ones, obviously, like the Rush with Zixor Prime and things like that. Disgusting top deck as well there from Ryvius with Skull of Gul'dan, able to coin it out and outcast it from the right-hand side of his decks. Not often you see that halfway through a turn. But now Glory has his own very, very powerful comeback. Let's see what the Mount Seller has for sale today.
Yeah, and I would Mukla, definitely.
Okay.
Speaking of Premier, I would also like to see him just cash in the Moonfire as well.
These are insane!
Oh wait,
What?
sorry. They don't even fit. Wait, double Mukla? Double Mukla, and he's got the Porcupine that when it dies deals its attack damage to random targets. He's got Jungle Panther.
That's like 4 S-tier minions,
Wait
right,
a
to
minute.
get off the Mount Seller.
I thought this was a disaster. Maybe it's a disaster for Ryvius?
He's just gonna win!
Okay, there's 2 Immolation Aura. There's
Right.
So that's gonna deal with at least the Porcupine, the Panther, and the 2 Eagles.
But he's still got
Ryvius also
Savage
has
Roar.
the Hero Power to deal with the Mount Seller.
Yeah.
Is the Demon Hunter just playing combo? I mean, just playing control now.
That's still, what, 12 off of the Mucklas.
Yeah,
6
and
off
of Savage Roar.
And then Hero Power Moonfire is 20.
Oh my god! You're right!
I hope you like my invention.
I mean, so it's with the Engineer looking for other removal.
That's not it.
Yeah, the eye being a little
You can't
bit too
get eye
expensive. Yeah. Not outcastable at the moment. He didn't get Blade Dance either. Oh, okay, so he's got Twin Slice to deal with one right now. And that's smart because that removes...
That keeps him alive!
Yes, it removes the extra 2 damage from Savage Roar. This is wild.
1 damage off lethal! Ah!
It is 1, right? 1 off. And 11, 12, 13.
Yep.
No! Does that mean he has to now overflow and put Ryvius at a healthier life total? Granted, the healing is immediately cancelled by the Mukla.
He just has to, right? Like, you're
Bite
not...
the bullet.
Okay, sorry. No, he does not have to. The alternative play is put him to 1 and say, do something. You know, force them to have either the I-beam or the lifesteal weapon.
But if they have the I-beam, that just kind of locks you out the game. You gave up a whole development in that case. So I do completely respect going for the overflow here. I mean, just this 7-9 Mukla is still a big issue for Ryvius. A single I-beam can't deal with this.
Honestly, though, he got a very, very underwhelming selection off of the overflow. Nothing to actually put onto the board.
Not quite, but 1 Glowfly could change that.
Fair enough.
Overgrowth, still a mana off of being able to actually draw with it. So. But maybe does the Mukla just get there?
We'll have to see. Metamorphosis Hero Power is 5, so that puts it down to 4. Chaos Strike plus Weapon does finish off the other 4. You chunk a big lot of damage there, even if you are healing up.
looking at the I-beam as well, if there's some way to fit that in.
Sure.
It is trapped between two 8-cost spells, the worst place for an outcast to be. He's got is that
It's
play
like,
dance now, so
It's like you having to cast between two of us other casters. You're the I-beam.
I got nerfed, so that's a compliment, I guess. I was too good.
Take it as that.
Of course. He actually runs 2 Savage Roar in the deck, which is not something we see very often, I would say. A lot of us are
Double
running
Savage
just one.
Roar, Hero Power, Moonfire, 6 damage. That ain't getting there yet. Crystal Power cannot go face, much to my chagrin.
Indeed. So is it going to be starting with Overgrowth?
It
He
doesn't
can
draw,
play
though, right?
Glowflame. Oh, right. It's a 9 mana right now.
And he could
Ah!
go Overgrowth,
No.
Overgrowth to draw 1 card.
That's disgusting.
8 mana.
And at that
one
point,
card.
you're probably just going to use double Crystal Power and then Overflow or something like that.
Double Crystal Power, Moonfire, face, Overflow. Yeah, maybe.
But the Overflow puts Ryvius at another +5 health. This is this
What's
game.
Glory even running in his list at the top? Like, I mean, there's not that much left. He's not running Forest Aid. He's not running Gift of the Wild. It's Glowfly Swarm is the real last vestige of hope he has.
Exactly. He's discarded the other Mount Seller and Kael'thas at the very beginning of the game, and so now it is just going to be this Overflow and Prey. Something pointed at the face is the other Moonfire. Is this... okay, I was going to say, is it for real that both the Glowflies are in the bottom 4? But there is one. Sorry.
However, on the other side, Ryvius is not that close, really, to winning the game. Like, he could go Altruis, I-beam his own Altruis, but even then, he can't play the Blade Dance, so yeah.
Wow, he's just
Can't get
cashing
the
in
skull out.
one. Yeah, take the lifesteal while he can.
Yep.
It is important for him to hold on to Altruis as he knows both Glowflies are still available. I was thinking about using Skull maybe there even without the mana reduction, but
That's
get one
that's
I-beam
fair.
to the left puts Altruis in a better spot to clear stuff, so I can get behind that as well. So Glowfly. Soul of the Forest, so Altruis needs 4 procs to deal with everything.
Let's see if you can get that.
Okay, that's a cheap one.
Yeah, that's a good start.
I see.
They will never
Oh yeah, looks like Altruis gets there every time.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. He just needs to make sure that I-beam can target something, which, yeah, it always can.
You could also have just played Eldrachi and Mana Burn.
That too. Yeah. Which maybe was better, actually.
Oh, I quite like developing stuff. Oh man, what started as a disaster for Glory then became, you know, absolutely insane with the best Mount Seller I've ever seen. Just, you know, carrying the weight dropped by Kael'thas and the other Mount Seller. And then he was just 1 damage off. Ryvius managed to pull it back. But now, Altruis out of the way, another Glowfly develops. Does Ryvius have the lethal if he gets Kael'thas off the top?
It is. It's not necessarily over yet either way. It is still just not quite lethal for Ryvius on the other side, though, is it?
Yeah. Oh
it's
my
so
god.
close either way.
Just Power of the Wild here, I suppose, for Glory. I guess he's thinking about whether this one armor from the hero power could ever save him from any specific risk.
I don't know. I mean, I think, to be honest, just going Hero Power Blade Dance probably just wins Ryvius the game anyway.
Not many cards.
It gives him that extra turn to survive, right?
Yeah.
And that's
or
a
just
top
Chaos
deck.
Nova off the top.
Yeah, although
That
we
is
can't
a
really call it a
very
top deck.
crucial tech.
There's 2 left in the deck. I mean, 2 cards left in the deck. It's bound to have drawn
Top.
this at some point.
Deckin and Wreckin is Ryvius here off the top.
All right.
Demons. Demons.
I mean, not much to think about other than whether he wants to save the weapon charge, and that is exactly what he does. So Glory completely out of board development, except for Eagles. We're not even going to see the OTK played, and that one was a lot closer than I thought it would be, given that Wheel of Fortunes.
Yeah, it's one of the downsides of Glory's deck list. Is okay, you know, I'm not going to say that it's a bad deck because you can discard Exotic Mount Seller and Kael'thas. Obviously, you don't play to that. That is almost never going to happen. That was an extreme outlier. But it is a little bit stripped down in terms of the top end. There's no Forest's Aid. There's no Gift of the Wild. All that good stuff that can really ramp you up and give you a little bit more consistency in the late game has just been completely stripped out of Glory's list. And so maybe it's a little bit better against the aggro decks, maybe sacrificing some matchups for something else. But either way, it was not quite able to have enough stuff in the deck. It was just all cleared off before he could get the lethal.
Yeah, we're seeing this from not just the Druid, that it's built a little bit differently with the double Savage Roars and cutting the top end. We're also seeing that he built the Warlock a different way with the Fiendish Rites. So it appears that Glory has a different take on how to actually refine the list. And that I believe valid while we're still so early in a meta. Refinements are meant to be made, and people who experiment get us closer to what we can eventually land on as the list for all of these archetypes. So it'll be cool to see how that changes from week to week.
That's right. Refinement is very important. Refinement is very important. And speaking of the great refiner of Asia Pacific, Ryvius, we can take a look at his warrior deck up next, which he's going to be queuing up. This is one of the deck that I feel like had a lot of excitement around it in the initial build with No Hands Egg Warrior. Despite that being a very, very cool deck that I'm very fond of, I get the suspicion that we may, as a community, be moving on to some other kind of warrior list. Something maybe a little bit closer to Ryvius's list that we see here. Maybe with a little bit less of the control package. I'm not sure if Bomb is necessarily the way to go. But a lot of different players have been experimenting with lists without the eggs, a little bit more tempo oriented. But we did see from Surrender yesterday a build very much like this working tremendously well for him.
That's right, Derek. This is a warrior deck, as you can see right here. And yeah, we did see a lot of different takes on warrior from the Korean players. Ryvius, of course, another strong player from country where we saw Chonsu and Surrender both move on in their group. Ryvius well positioned to maybe move on here as well. All of them did not quite have the exact same list, but they were running a bomb package of some sort, whereas Glory's Warrior, which was unfortunately banned away, is closer to what we're seeing in Europe and Americas with the kind of Battle Rage and Egg package.
Yeah, I think that Orange tweeted out recently that he's got like a new list that he was working on with Hunter Ace, obviously infamous practice partners, I suppose you could say, that cuts the egg stuff, but still has the Corkron, Blood Boil, all that early pirate synergy as well, that makes it very, very powerful. But for the moment, it is of course going to be the control-ish Bomb Warrior that we're going to see right now from Ryvius, and he's showing a good amount of reserve right out the gate, not playing his 1-drop on 1.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do want to note for Glory, big relief, Kael'thas is now in hand at the opener. So that's a good one.
Very true.
And I'd be very sad to see eggs cut altogether from Warriors, because that means we can't call it Aggro Warrior anymore. Sad face. Anyway.
We're all very proud of you.
Rising wins the option for Glory here if he wants to cycle it. And you definitely do. I don't think there's much to be accomplished by playing just like early 3-2 minions. Just anything with low health tends to get risky, skippered away by this deck.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you have Overflow in hand, that's like the only time that you consider playing it for a 3-2 in pretty much any matchup, to be honest. You just usually want to go for the card draw in this deck. There is the option for Coin Innovate Glowfly, which is a very powerful play in a lot of matchups. Do you think it should be gone for here?
I was gonna say, looks pretty good because this is before the Brawl turn, and given that Ryvius would only be on 4 mana, and I'm now seeing the reason for holding the Chief Pirate, and that's to have something else to combo off of with Risky Skipper to have an answer for Glowfly Swarm. I was kind of liking the play, but it turns out that if he had gone for that, Ryvius had exactly the answer: Skipper, 2 minions.
And I guess if you look at the way the hand's shaping out, if Glory had gone for it and it got answered, he probably thought the risk wasn't the reward wasn't worth the risk, because if it goes wrong, he's left pretty much completely high and dry. He really doesn't have anything. But now, because he's ramped instead, he has this full 6 mana. If he wanted to, he could just triple draw off the Rising Winds. That doesn't sound too bad to me, to be honest.
Triple draw. Yeah, it does open up a lot of good things for him, right? Because if he gets cheap spells, which will be going into turn 7, so Bog Beam and Iron Bark will be 0, then he gets Kael'thas active as well. It's an interesting thing to consider. He is reaching for the Glowfly now. Perhaps he was thinking like it would have been good last turn, and he only didn't play it at that point, so he could just kind of save some 0-cost things for Kael'thas. So now he's going to play it. It's going to get skipped away, I think. Does this ever merit a brawl? I feel probably not. Oh,
I think
that
it merits
too.
a Bladestorm. That is ridiculous.
That is such a powerful card. As long as the opposing board is symmetrical, it could be anywhere from an Arcane Explosion to like a Flame Strike or even bigger.
He's playing Kael'thas. Is this really a Kael'thas turn?
I mean, he's believing in the draw. He's got the full 7. He's got the 7 mana, which is essentially full mana for Druid already, because everything becomes cheap. But it is kind of risky, very risky, I should say.
I mean, I guess against the Warrior, I was kind of, whenever you play Kael'thas, I kind of just automatically assume it's going to die. That's not necessarily an assumption you can make, actually, which is probably the driving force behind this play.
And yeah, Ryvius didn't have the answer. I'm looking at the single target removal available. There's no Shield Slam, which we saw, I believe, from Surrender's list, and that would have been the premier way to try and deal with this.
Yeah, it's pretty much just Bladestorm, right? Or winning a 50-50 brawl. And given that he'd just seen a Bladestorm played off the top,
overflow!
I guess it was a pretty good play for Glory, and it's working out ridiculously well.
And it's so impressive how quickly I doubt that the Kael'thas had a good chance of sticking, because I'm in the same boat as you, Daruk. I like to make sure that my illegal card can be as illegal for as long as possible. Amazing. It still looks like there won't be a good answer for next turn either. Blood Boil Brute not strong enough to take down the Kael'thas in one hit.
This does Sorry, I was going to say this does kind of highlight the part of Glory's list that I don't like, however, because, you know, he's just gone through an overflow. He drew 3 cards off the Rising Winds as well, and still he doesn't have a good card to play with Kael'thas. I think in his list he needs one more big card at least, whether it's a, you know, the Forest's Aid, Gift of the Wild, or even just a Force of Nature, something like that, to be able to play down in the mid game with Kael'thas. I mean,
in terms of development, it really is just 1-, because Gift of the Wild is a buff, not a develop card. So
fair.
He really just is missing 1 twin spell. So that is a big deal because it is twin spell. Yeah. But to be completely fair, it seems like both Mount Sellers and the second Glowfly are in the bottom 10, which doesn't seem like a very likely outcome.
True.
In any case, Ryvius did have the chance to go for a 2 and 3 brawl last turn, but that doesn't seem quite worth it to deal with Mr. Kael'thas, because the best thing he can do is redevelop, and in that case, brawl is good anyway.
Yeah, I think Ryvius has come to the same conclusion we have, right? That is, you know what, having Kael'thas in Glory's deck is not that bad. The worst thing he can do with it really is draw through his deck, which, you know, yes, he has done. That has happened. But if that's the worst case scenario and you can just lead into Deathwing, I think I'd be pretty happy with that.
Right. So Deathwing is going to take down Kael'thas, and we're getting to the point now where Ryvius has enough mana to brawl and then play Risky Skipper and minions. So that goes through a board development even with the insurance of Soul of the Forests. So I am not seeing a way for Glory to get out of this one, but he's had pretty good Mount Sellers so far. So let's see what this one's got in the box.
Yeah, and he's got the option to go triple 0 mana spell with Vate, Double Moonfire, and then Soul of the Forest afterwards, which makes him pretty survivable. You know, even a Risky Skipper, I think, is going to, on average, struggle to clear off all that.
But now Ryvius has the mana, like I said, to go for Brawl and then Risky and then stuff.
True.
I mean, 9 mana, that's exactly enough for Brawl and Risky, Armor Smith, Sky Raider. So it's probably just going to leave up 1 minion by the end of it.
I think even if it's unlikely to work, it's still far and away the best shot that Glory has to win the game. And that's not the worst selection I've ever seen. But I saw the best selection I've ever seen earlier today, so it's also great.
Hazard Hairs, so that's a good one in my book. I tend to summon those.
Oh god, yeah.
Probably
the owl.
It's my karma for having played so much Evolved Shaman in the day and always asking for the hairs. Okay, so here is the turn we were mentioning. Skipper, after Brawl with 2 minions. Oh, sorry, tons of minions because of the Blow Brood.
Oh my god.
Eat your heart out, Mogu Flesh Shaper.
That's not allowed. That can't be right, Gia.
So what's another term
insane.
for something that's not allowed, Derek?
Illegal.
I agree.
Alright, there's the other Mount Seller. Double crystal power doesn't even take out the brute though. So I guess you're just going for the, killing the Risk Skipper and the Armor Smith and hoping that that's enough. Maybe.
Open and praying. There is also a world I could see where you use 1 crystal power on the skip and then just power the wild to buff. Because it's the same amount of spells.
2 stealth is pretty good. With double Savage Roar in hand.
True. So now Ryvius has to consider whether it's worth using at this point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously from caster perspective, we can see still probably doesn't have a chance. But, it's probably the best outcome he could actually hope to get off Mount Seller.
Yeah, in this particular case, that's exactly right. Outside of maybe Zixor to just shore up his value.
Sure, yeah. I guess Zixor's probably better.
But in terms of just an immediate threat, this is quite scary for Ryvius. But there's the second Skipper. And that's a cheap enough pirate. Oh my god. Glory. I don't see it for this one. It looks like Ryvius is well on his way to becoming our first player into the winners part of this bracket.
Fungal Fortune's not bad. I think that's all minions that have been played now, right, with both Mount Sellers, so it's nothing but good stuff here. And bombs. Lots of bombs.
These Fungal Fortunes for Glory have not been fantastic. Suffice to say. Funny enough, the Glowfly and Power of the Wild actually survives because Ryvius is kind of out of minions.
Yeah.
I'm almost out of cards.
I mean, it survives the Skipper. It definitely doesn't survive a Brawl.
It's kind of unfortunate that bombs aren't treated as that they are treated as spells. Otherwise, you could just discard them and not have to.
Just make them into boombots so they're minions. Come on, Blizzard.
Exactly.
So,
all right, Bog Beam,
your power.
Glowfly, double Bog Beam, and then hope there's no Brawl. Sounds good to me, right? Unless you want to go for that next turn.
That.
Yeah. I like this. Before they can develop anything.
Yeah, the whole idea behind this play is that you're not playing Power of the Wild because you just believe there's no Brawl anyway, so you could have the mana to do everything next turn. But
that's right, it just doesn't matter. If this gets cleared, you just lose. Blade Storm's even better, even more tilting as well, as it looks like that is going to be it.
I mean, it looks tilting to Glory because it came off the top, but we could see that the Brawl would have closed out the game anyway. So Ryvius, with a very dominating performance, with kind of a different take on Priest and some differently built Warrior as well. And I think
I gotta say,
great
overall,
OTK play. Very
Yeah,
clean.
sorry. He's looking really, really good. I think it's similar to last season where he was bringing definitely his own signature twist on a lot of established decks and archetypes. Like, last season everyone was bringing Control or Bomb Warrior. He was bringing Mechathune Warrior. It's just a little bit different to what everyone else is going for. And it's the same here, as we can see, with his Galakron Priest in particular, and of course the combo Demon Hunter. But I look forward to seeing more from him in the upper portion of the bracket.
Yeah, I would say Ryvius is definitely one of those players that I think I misspoke. He actually innovated Mechathune Druid, not the Togwaggle Druid.
Right.
And I remember, because you mentioned Mechathune, he's one of these players that's not afraid to play these very high skill cap decks.
Yeah.
I would say that anything in the realm of having to draw your whole deck before you can get the win condition done is something that takes a lot of practice. And with so little time into the expansion, it's a bold call to bring decks like this into GM, but it's definitely paying off for him.
It really is. And also the decision to go for a more controlling build of Warrior. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the correct one overall. It's always very, very difficult to tell. But it's feeling very, very strong in this particular group, being able to dominate those druids, it feels like, especially with Glory's list that's just a little bit light on threats, in my opinion. There was just, as we saw, more than enough answers to deal with literally every single threat in the list. For Glory.
And having that control package, I'd like to add, makes a lot of sense with the rest of his lineup and the strategy he's going for, which is leaving up Demon Hunter.
True.
Oh, sorry. Did he ban it? I can't remember.
No, he did not. Yeah, he banned away the Warrior instead, which again makes a lot of sense. And we can see how it's going to be facing up for him for the rest of the day as we take a look at the bracket. Obviously, Ryvius moving up to the winners portion here today, but unfortunately, we're going to see Glory moving down to our elimination match where he will be facing either Tom or Possessi, depending how that goes, as our next match of today.
And I kept on touting Possessi as one to watch, one